Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Reginé Gilbert. I am currently an industry assistant professor at New York University in the Integrated Design and Media program, which is part of the Tandon School of Engineering. I teach user experience design as well as co-teach a course called Looking Forward, where Gus Chalkias and I teach students about the assistive technologies that blind and low vision folks use. And I got into accessibility shortly after I studied user experience design. And when I took the user experience design course, I remember there was one slide in a 12-week course about accessibility. And I just one day woke up and I said, I want to make the world a more accessible place. And then, what you do is you go to Google. And so I Googled accessibility in New York City and I found a meetup, and the accessibility meetup totally changed my life because I made friends who I'm still friends with today. And it got me on a path to incorporating accessibility into user experience design, not only in my work, but also in my teaching, because I started teaching pretty early on in my career.
So one of the things you've just kind of highlighted there is, again, how little accessibility is even talked about for those that are supposed to know about user experience, for those supposed to know about like human computer interaction, all that stuff. It's accessibility is this almost like a footnote, if that. Um, Things are getting better. It's my experience too, but I guess didn't mean to jump into the philosophy so soon. But why do you think that is?
Well, I think we have an issue in society with ableism, and that is kind of one of the root causes as to why things are not made accessible or accessibility isn't thought about. Because I've taught for 7 years, and I can say honestly, when I taught 7 years ago, people did not know what accessibility was at all. They didn't. Now, though, in 2022, I can say people do know what accessibility is. However, there is still this feeling that it's hard, and people don't take the time to actually learn what they need to do, because I think if you do bit by bit, piece by piece, you can actually build something. I equate it to, if somebody's going to go build a brick building, for example, you don't get a bunch of bricks and just throw them and say, well, there's the building, right? You lay each brick. You put the mortar, you put the brick, you put the mortar, you put the brick. And I think about this for accessibility. We have to build it, right? We can't just say, well, here's all the things we need to do for accessibility and then throw the bricks on the ground. That doesn't work, right? We have to stack them. So I think that there's progress for sure, and still a long way to go.
And one of the things I've seen in your talks, like you talked about kind of the role of empathy, and it's often talked about in user experience design and the design process. Given your experience now in both usability and or like user experience and accessibility, how do you think causes like AIR and other, I guess you can call it, tech for good initiatives can build or bring empathy so that products are accessible?
Well, I think one thing for sure that you know experiences like AIR bring is a level of awareness and understanding. I think empathy without compassion is just not going to really bring forth change. I think having the understanding of this, it's important to make things accessible, so that people have access. We all know what it feels to be left out of something. If you're working on a product and you're not making things accessible, then you're ultimately causing folks to have that feeling of being left out. Nobody likes that feeling. No one. And so I think when you are actually working on something and you're getting to understand it, that's where you start to build. I don't think that empathy is something that you just have. It's a skill that needs to be built. Like, you have to keep it going. You have to keep learning. You have to keep understanding. And you have to, I think, be able to share your knowledge as well.
And that's what we're really, looking forward to you to bring kind of together these different fields. One of the things also I've noticed that I caught one of your talks, you mentioned that accessibility seems to usually be seen as important if it helps the bottom line, for lack of a better word, and less
Mhm.
important if it won't influence profits or subscriptions or user count or anything like that. So nonprofits in theory are supposed to be different. Is this one reason why maybe like, why are you so excited about working with nonprofits and independent artists and getting their websites up to speed? They're not in it for big bucks, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I think, when you're talking to corporations, you have to talk bottom line, but if you're talking to everyone else, you want to talk about the 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 access that people can have. You want as many people to know about your nonprofit as possible. You want as many people to get involved as possible. And if you're not making things accessible, then you're actually shutting the doors on folks. And so when you make something accessible, you're allowing a lot more folks to enter.
And one thing also I've noticed, like, you talked about kind of the role of like, of course, digital equity, which is kind of our Knowbility's mission statement, of course. Because one thing we often don't talk about when we do our trainings or whatever is like justice, right? Like how fundamentally, again, we talked about access, we talked about the negative power here of exclusion and how inaccessible technology is just has so many down effects down the chain of, like, excluding people, which then they can't do what they need to do to maybe support their families or have fun. What do you think justice here, how does justice play into all this? And you can take it any direction you want. I mean, this is kind of just a fun
Yeah.
intro. At like, this point I've kind of asked you the hard questions already. Let's talk about
Well,
justice.
accessibility is a human right, right? And that is a justice issue, right? So thinking about the fact that when you think about inclusion, when you think about accessibility, it's not just, folks with disabilities, it's people who are poor, right? People who may not have access to high-speed internet at home, so they'll have to go to a library to access the internet, right? There's a lot of assumptions that are made about the technology, especially within the United States, about what people have access to. And the truth is, like, more than half of the United States does not have access to high-speed internet. And so we have to think about these things as we're creating whatever it is we're working on. We can't just think about ourselves. And that is oftentimes, I think, the issue with technology is the people who are making the technology are thinking of themselves and not thinking about who actually might be using their products, which could be a diverse group of folks.
I suppose that's where bringing in people with disabilities and just users who will benefit from accessibility into the design process, right? Have you had experience with that? Like, have you been able to embed, for lack of a better word, like bring people in to either do usability testing or start from the really wireframing? Like, how, from your experience in the industry and academia, how much of an uphill battle do we have to go?
Well, I I have the pleasure of teaching with Gus Chalkius, which has been so enlightening for our looking forward class because Gus is blind, and co-teaching with him, where he is the expert in assistive technologies that blind and low vision folks use, and then I come in with user experience expertise, and we come together. This has been so good for our students to see that folks with disabilities are amazing and they are capable of doing so many things. It's just oftentimes they're not given those opportunities. And when given those opportunities, who knows? Because I feel like the most innovative folks that I know of are folks with disabilities because they have to make things work. And so when non-disabled folks interact with disabled folks in a way that is not involving ableism, a lot of progress can actually happen. And I think the opportunity um, that people are going to get with the project for AIR is to get to have that experience, to have that knowledge. I think I want to see more of us like working together.
So Air, gears up in enrollment is probably sometime in mid-August. We'll start getting the teams together. What excites you most about the whole initiative? You've worked with us before, giving our great keynote on mixed reality, but now kind of working on this project. What gets you excited about all this?
What gets me excited is that people are going to get to work on something that is accessibility related, that it's going to get to be out there and public, that people are going to be aware, and that it is possible to make websites accessible when we work together.